What is going on, Raiders? Soda Dragon here. Welcome, and I hope you guys are doing well. So right now I am on Raid's test server and we got some mighty Ukko talk to do. If you guys don't know who he is the September fusion starting on the 9th. So guys, I'm going to be completely upfront and honest with you. I think this champion is being overhyped. Now guys, of course I'll talk about why I think this champ is overhyped, but just because something is overhyped doesn't mean it's bad. So when I say that the champion is overhyped, I'm not saying this is a bad champion. This is a very good champion, just overhyped. And my general advice for fusions would be go for every fusion if you have the resources. Now I know some of you guys don't. Some of you free-to-play players or newer players, you have to be picky with who you decide to fuse. But some of you mid-game players or end-game players or whales, yeah, of course, fuse him. Fuse everybody, because you don't know how Plarium is going to change champions in the future. Even a champion that might not be that great right now might be really powerful later on when they decide to buff that champion. So after some testing, what was my overall impression of Ukko? I was not impressed. Here's why. This champion has been hyped to the rails. I mean, this guy is supposed to be the next BROGNI. This guy is supposed to be better than HELICATH. I mean, when you put someone up on a pedestal like that, of course, you have really high expectations. And I was expecting this guy to be insane, at least where I tested him. And the thing is, he wasn't. Once again, guys, don't mistake what I'm saying here. This guy is not trash at all. He's a very good champ. But as far as being the next BROGNI, as far as being better than HELICATH, the best fusion of the year, no. So let's talk about skills really quick, and I'll give you my impression from testing them out. So we'll start with the A1 here, Ukko Smash. So it's basically an AoE that has a 50% base chance to land a strong version decreased attack, and that's bookable up to 75% chance. So what did I think about this A1 after testing it out? Well, the thing is, you're gonna have to book it. I felt like 50% chance, that base chance, is just not enough. So if you really want to see that decreased attack occur frequently, yeah, you're gonna need to book it. Otherwise, if you do book it, it is an excellent skill, easily one of his best. The thing is, in a group context, it's really easy to think this is awesome. I mean, it just lands all the time. And yeah, it does land with a good percent chance, especially if you book it. But once you go to a single target, let's say you want to use this against the Demon Lord, you're going to see how really that 50% chance, that base chance, is just not enough. You really want that 75% chance. So if you're thinking about using this guy for his decreased attack against bosses, in particular, these single bosses, not something like the Hydra, then yes, you're gonna definitely want to book it, or else that 50% is just not enough. But against multiple targets, yes, that 50% is gonna feel like a lot. I love you too. Next up, guys, is the A2 here, Ukko's Fury. So basically, it's a double AoE that removes 4 buffs per enemy. So it's a buff strip, and if it leaves the enemy with 0 buffs at the end of the skill, then it's going to put a decreased attack and a block buffs debuff on them. Now this skill is interesting because you would think, well, what enemies would have more than 4 buffs? Basically, this is a buff strip with a block debuffs and a decreased attack. I mean, when are you going to fail to land that block buffs and a decreased attack? How many enemies in this game, or waves of enemies, have more than 4 buffs? But when you actually test this, there are actually quite a few scenarios where enemies have more than 4 buffs. So this isn't just an insta block buffs or a guaranteed block buff. So you can't think of it like that. When you actually test this out, there are more enemies you think in this game that have more than 4 buffs at a time. Now, is this a very good skill? Yes, it's a very good skill, but it's not as good as a full buff strip, and it's not as good as simply applying block buffs. It is not as good as either of those skills. It's like a budget version of both combined into one skill. So that's what it is. So if you think, well, it's basically the same as block buffs and a buff strip, it's not. When you test it, it's not. It's conditional, all right? A very good skill, but a poor man's version of either of those skills. Yes, 2-in-1, but still a poor man's version. So in actually testing it, I'd have to say, yeah, I was pretty disappointed. Why? Because when you read it, it sounds like an insane skill. So that's what you expect when you actually try it out. But when you do actually try it out, especially unbooked, no, it is not an insane skill. It's a good skill, but it is definitely not insane. As I mentioned, a poor budget version of either a full buff strip or a block buffs. Next up, guys, we've got the A3 Ukko's Mercy. So basically, it's an AoE revive bringing everyone to 40% HP plus a block damage on them for 1 turn and an increased speed buff. Now, you can simply use this even if there are no dead allies as an increased speed buff. So what I think about this revive? Well, it's a revive. I guess that's the best I can say. In my opinion, it's not that great. It's a good revive. It's not a great revive. So reviving someone to 40% HP, that's okay. Block damage is all right. It's not great. It's all right. That block damage for 1 turn, yes, you can get off their turns, those people that are revived, if they are not CC'd. Remember, you can still CC people through block damage. And also that increased speed buff, it'd be great if there was some turn meter boost associated with it, but that increased speed buff doesn't feel like it's enough for your allies to take their turns quickly. Now you might say, well, they don't need to take their turns quickly. Well, yeah, they do if the other team has CC champions. Okay, so that block damage will protect you against the damage, but not against the CC. So if you want your champs to take their turns, a turn meter boost included with that increased speed would have been great, would have put this over the top. And even booked at a 4-turn booked cooldown, it's okay. It's not great. So you're gonna see once you actually use this revive, it's not great. I'll just put it that way. Is it a good revive? Is it a solid revive? Yes, it is. It is solid. Is it a great revive? Is it something that, like, this is the best fusion of the year, this is supposed to impress me? Is it a great revive? No, for me it's not. And guys, try using this without the books. A 6-turn cooldown. You're gonna see how not impressive this revive is, especially if you don't book it. And even if you do, it's good, it's solid, but it is not impressive, it is not great. Now, I do like that you can use this skill even if no one's there to revive. So you can simply use this as an increased speed buff. So I definitely like that part, but at a booked 4-turn cooldown, 2 turns of increased speed, chances are you'll probably save this skill for when you actually want the revive. So here's the thing, if this revive would have put that block damage over everybody, not just the people being revived, then this would have been an excellent skill. Unfortunately, it kind of falls into the same trap as Blind Seer's revive, where Blind Seer, it doesn't give her that block damage. Here, we don't get that block damage for anybody that's still alive. It's only the people that are revived, and that's a big weakness. Do people consider her a top tier reviver? No, they don't. And it's going to be the same thing with this guy. It's nice for him to have, but in no way, shape, or form is this guy a top tier reviver. All right, guys, moving on to the passive here, Totem Warden, and this is where really I think Mighty Ukko gets the majority of his hype from. So I'm just going to read this off verbatim. Has a 50% chance of stealing 1 random buff from an enemy each time they receive a buff. Any stolen buffs become protected. Now, what does this sound like? This sounds so freaking OP. Really, anytime an enemy receives a buff, he has a 50% chance of stealing it. And when he does, by the way, you can't steal it back. You can't remove it because it's protected. Oh my goodness. But what happens when you actually test this out? Now, I don't know if it's weird coding or not, but it doesn't actually seem like he steals that many buffs. So as I mentioned, guys, maybe it's something weird with the coding. I don't know. But it just doesn't seem like his buff stealing mechanic works to that 50% amount that it should. I feel like enemies get many times more buffs than Ukko happens to steal. It doesn't seem to be a 50-50 thing. All right, guys, we'll look at an arena example here and you'll see what I mean. Remember, from each enemy, he's supposed to steal half their buffs. Half their buffs. So we'll see if it looks like he's stealing half their buffs here. So I did try to focus on teams with Sifi and Necrip because those are the big buffers. So you'll see what I mean. Now, does he steal buffs? Yes, the buff steal works. But does it work to that 50% degree? It doesn't seem like it. So obviously people, look at how many buffs are on the other team. Look at that. So just cover Ukko for a second. Don't look at him and just look at the other team. They seem like they have a lot of buffs. Do they seem like 50% of their buffs have been stolen? It doesn't look like it to me. And look how many of them have over 4 buffs. That means if Ukko uses his A2, he will not put that block buffs on them because they have more than 4 buffs. And he needs to strip them of all their buffs before he's going to put on that block buffs and that decreased attack. So this is just an example of that. But it doesn't seem like with the enemy team, 50% of each enemy's buffs have been stolen. It just doesn't look like that to me. And this is just my personal experience with it. I don't know if they're going to change things once the these characters are finally released to the public, maybe it's not working as intended. Maybe it's less than 50% right now for whatever reason. Now my accuracy should be good for, especially for go first team. I think I have like 500 to 600 accuracy. It should be good for a quick, fast go first team. So yeah, you're gonna see the other team get a fair amount of buffs. Now here Ukko has a lot of buffs, but remember only a few of them are protected, so those weren't stolen that are not protected. So those are because my team buffed him. So see, don't get that confused right there. Only one of his buffs right there for Ukko are protected. That means that's the one that he stole. Everything else is from my team. And then we're going to see the nuke right there. And so that's what I'm talking about, guys. It doesn't seem like Ukko is stealing 50% of each enemy's buffs. It really doesn't seem like that. All right, guys, here's another team. And you tell me if you feel like 50% of each enemy's buffs are being stolen. Once again, it just doesn't feel like that. Now, this is a protection necret, so obviously we won't be able to steal those protected buffs, but unprotected ones we can, and the Sifi is not a protection Sifi, I don't think. So look at this Whirlwind Romance. So the Whirlwind Romance is done, right? Look at that. How many buffs have been stolen? Look at Ukko. 0. Think about it. Whirlwind Romance, 3 buffs on every enemy. On 4 enemies, that's 12. He should steal 6 of them, right? On average, right? 50%. Does it look like he's stealing 50%? Now, I guess everybody on this team could have like 700 accuracy. I guess that's possible, but I don't think so. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I'm talking about, where a lot of times it doesn't feel like he's stealing enough buffs, at least not 50%. So we're gonna keep on going here. And for me, I'm just really focused on obviously Ukko here and stealing those buffs and his buff strip. But also notice some enemies do have 4 buffs, but some enemies have more than 4 buffs. Obviously the unstrippable ones we can't strip, but still, we'll keep it going here. We'll see what he can do. All right, how many can we strip? Okay, so the point here is for a lot of the enemies you saw, I could strip them, so my accuracy is high enough. But what about the buff stealing? It just doesn't seem to happen enough. So the accuracy is there, just the buff stealing doesn't seem to be happening enough. All right, so this match is going to take a little while, but once again, we're seeing how much of the buffs we can actually steal. All right, Trina's coming in with that big nuke. Now, when that block buffs happens, I mean, it's powerful. I like it. That decreased accuracy, good. That's a deadly combo. But sometimes they just have more than 4 buffs. A lot of these teams. So that protection is off of Arbiter now. And they're going down. They're going down for sure. Just a matter of time. Yeah, that protection necret, that was pretty annoying. And he's going down for sure. Though the weak hit, we don't get the decreased attack, unfortunately. It'd be nice to get that against Rhodos. And one shot. Now this revive, I mean, it works. Even though Rhodos, if he uses his A3, he can go through it. All right, guys, and finally, but you guys kind of get my point. It really doesn't seem like he's stealing enough buffs. All right, guys, next up, we got a fight against 3 big buffers against Sifi, against Duchess, and against Cardiel. So how does this go? How many buffs are stolen? Where are you going to see? Okay, remember, it's supposed to be 50%. Half of everybody's buffs should be stolen on the enemy team. Everybody's. So how many buffs were stolen there? All right, so Duchess just did her perfect veil, block debuffs, increased attack. How many buffs were stolen here? Doesn't seem like any. Right? Because if you were to look at Ukko, if he stole a buff, it would be protected. And you see no yellow lines around any of the buffs of Ukko. So he didn't steal any buffs. Seriously. I mean, Duchess is buffing like crazy and Ukko stole no buffs. He's supposed to steal half and he stole none. So something is going on here. Something is going on. So see, I do have the accuracy once again to debuff people. So it's not an accuracy issue, right? What is it? I don't know. It's just something with the mechanic that it doesn't work as it should. It's really not working to that 50% degree, I don't think, from testing. So look at that, Sifi. She just did her Whirlwind Romance, and it only works for 2 people because the rest have block buffs, but still, we should have stolen 50% of the buffs of that Whirlwind Romance. And what does Ukko have? 0 stolen buffs so far. 0. This is insane, okay? Duchess just went buffed everybody, Sifi just went and buffed everybody, and we have 0 stolen buffs. This is a problem. It's not working as it should. And the accuracy is there because I debuffed them with that A2. Okay, can we get any stolen buffs? Not yet. Look at that. No protected buffs on Ukko. Now we get a stolen buff. Finally, that increased attack is stolen. We see that protected on Ukko. Finally, after everyone took their turns. That's a long time. It's supposed to be 50%. It is not. Now we got another stolen buff, but this is the only the second stolen buff of this fight. Think about how many buffs the enemy team has gotten. And this is the second stolen buff from Ukko. At a 50% amount, what is like 10%? That amount is shockingly low. It is not 50%. So we just keep it going here. Get killed off a few. Can we steal any more buffs? Or are there any more buffs to steal? We'll see. Okay, survived the big nuke from Candy. Sleep in the Trunda. Okay, so these are my buffs. Okay, Ukko's A1. I like it. It's good. The decreased attack. Excellent. Now we steal our 3rd buff from Cardio. Over a minute into the fight, and we're stealing our 3rd buff from an insane buffing team. That is not 50%. I don't know what that is. 10%, 5%? You guys let me know. Okay, so I got some resists and some strips though. I would just keep it going. So the cardio does seem to be a high resist cardio, which is pretty typical of cardios. A lot of them are high resist. So just to show you how much accuracy I have on my Ukko, check it out. I have over 600 accuracy on my Ukko. So this isn't like a low accuracy Ukko, especially for some of those damage dealers on those teams. I mean, not everybody was a tanky high resist champ, right? Certain ones, yes, but remember how many times I used that A2 and I stripped their buffs. So the accuracy was there, okay? But a lot of times we did not see that buff steal. So there's something going on. It's not working as well as it should. All right, guys, so here is some Hydra footage now. I did want to test them against a team of mine, that was not high resistance, to kind of see how many buffs could be stolen back from the Head of Mischief. So if I had your typical Mischief tank with very high resistance, I mean, he wouldn't steal any buffs, that is the Head of Mischief, and then there wouldn't be any buffs for Ukko to steal back. So this is a test to see how many of the buffs can be stolen back by Ukko. Now, right now there's block buffs, so that head is not going to steal any. But even when we don't have that, it doesn't seem like the buff steal happens enough. Now, this is a prolonged fight. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but that's just my general feel. Now, what do I think about him as a Hydra champion? I think he's good, but is he like the best fusion of the year good? Is he like better than BROGNI good? Better than HELICATH good? Is he that good? I don't think so. He's good against Hydra. He's solid against the Hydra. In fact, he's solid everywhere. That's the thing. He's a very solid champ. And if you have the resources, of course, go for him. But is he like the most ridiculous thing we've ever seen? Or is he like gonna change the meta anywhere? I don't know. Just my personal testing of him, I haven't been that impressed. And maybe because he was overhyped. Maybe if I just came into this and didn't hear a thing about him and just started to play with him, I think he was awesome. But I mean, as it is, just even reading the skill description, especially his passive, right? Yeah, we're gonna think this dude is so freaking awesome. How can they put this into one champ? Even that A2 is ridiculous. But once you play with him, I mean, I don't know if you're gonna feel the same way I feel. I'm just letting you know how I feel after actually having him and testing him. He's solid, but no, I do not think that he is the best fusion we've had this year or in a year or whatever, 2022. I do not think that. He's very solid. Of course, go for him if you have the resources. And Faction Wars, he is a stud. I've tested him out. He's an absolute stud in Faction Wars. But that being said, in the arena, I think he's okay, though he probably doesn't steal enough buffs. There's something going on there. And against the Hydra, he's okay. He's solid. But is he going to really knock your socks off? That's the thing. Is he that level of awesome? And in my opinion, he is not. He is not awesome. Okay, I saved that for a scant few champions. This guy, in my opinion, is not awesome. He's solid. He's very good. You probably won't regret fusing him. He probably won't be a Vault Guardian. And those are a lot of big pluses. A lot of you guys might say, okay, done. I'm fusing him. Won't be a Vault Guardian? Done. That's good enough. But is he awesome? Does he deserve the hype? So I would say no at this point. He is just a solid champ. Now guys, just let me focus on this for a second. Check this out. The head of mischief, the one on the very right, has stolen 5 buffs from me. And how many did Ukko steal in return? Remember, he's supposed to steal 50%. And how many did he steal? 0. I have the accuracy. He stole 0. So you see 0 protected buffs on Ukko here. So it really doesn't seem like he's stealing that much. Now, some people might say, well, it shouldn't work like that because the head of mischief isn't technically receiving a buff. It's the head of mischief is stealing a buff. So it doesn't work like that. And maybe that's the case. But if you steal a buff, it still seems to me like you're receiving that buff that you stole. And Ukko should have his fair shot at stealing him, that 50% shot. And this, like many other examples in this fight, he is just not stealing that many. Alright guys, so that's going to do it for my overall impression of Mighty Ukko here. In my testing, he is not the fusion of the year. I would not put him in that category. He is a very solid champion. Should you fuse him? Sure. If you have the resources, yes. Fuse him. You'll probably use him. You'll probably find uses for him. He's not going to be a Vault Guardian. That being said, is he the fusion of the year? Is he the next big thing? Is he a meta changer anywhere? I don't think so. So I felt like he was a little overhyped, and maybe that's why my expectations of him were so high, but no, they were not met. As you guys have seen from the footage I've showed and other testing that I didn't record, he is just not that impressive. Very solid, but when you tell people this is the best fusion of the year, he'd better meet that standard, that very, very high standard. And to me, he did not meet that. So should you fuse him? If you have the resources, yes. He is solid all around, but the next big thing, better than HELICATH, better than BROGNI, fusion of the year, I personally don't think so. So thanks for watching guys, and let me know what you think in the comments, especially if you plan to fuse him. And if you haven't yet, like, subscribe, and share. Turn on all notifications. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.